The biggest mistake you're probably making right now is pretending that you have everything figured out. We live in a world that is obsessed with being an expert. We feel like we always have to have the right answer, the right look, and the right opinion. But here's the problem. When you try to act like you know everything, you actually stop learning. You get stuck, your mind becomes like a statue. It's finished, but it's also frozen. It can't grow anymore. But there is actually a different way to live. It's a secret strategy that some of the smartest people in history used. It's the strategy of the fool. Now, when I say the fool, I don't mean someone who is actually unintelligent. I mean someone who is actually brave enough to look stupid so they can find the truth. If you want to actually grow, you have to be willing to let go of your ego. You have to be okay with being the person that doesn't know. You have to learn how to use the fool as a tool. We spend so much of our time building walls around ourselves. We try to look perfect on social media. We try to sound smart in meetings, and we're absolutely terrified that someone will find out that we're actually just figuring it out as we go. In schools or big companies, being called a fool is an insult. It's the thing that we're most afraid of. But I've actually been looking into this, and I realized that the most famous geniuses in the world, the people who actually changed the world on how we see it now, didn't care about looking smart. In fact, they often went out of their way to look like they knew nothing. They realized that the fool isn't the opposite of a genius. It's actually the starting point for one. It's a way to break through all the fake seriousness in the world. To understand this, we have to look at how this worked in the past. Part 1, The Power of Playing Dumb. Let's start with a guy named Socrates. You've probably heard of him. He's basically the father of Western philosophy. But he wasn't like the teachers we have today. There's a famous story where a religious messenger said that Socrates was the wisest man alive. And Socrates was confused. He said, "That can't be right. I don't know anything." But then he realized the messenger was right. He was the wisest because he was the only one honest enough to admit he didn't have the answers. Everyone else was just pretending. So he started using this as a strategy. He would go up to powerful politicians and experts and he would play dumb. He'd say, "I'm just a simple man. Could you explain to me what justice is?" He acted like a student. This is what people call Socratic irony, but really it's just playing the fool to win. Because he acted like he didn't know anything, the other person would let their guard down. They'd start talking and trying to look smart. As they talked, Socrates would ask simple questions that slowly showed that they actually didn't know anything. By playing the fool, he was able to see the truth that everyone else was too proud to notice. He stayed empty so he could always keep learning. Part 2, The Only Person Who Can Tell the Truth. Now think about the old royal courts, the kings and the queens from history books. Back then, if you said something wrong to the king, you could literally lose your head. Everyone in the castle, the guards, the advisors, the lords, everyone was a yes man. They only said what the king wanted to hear because they were scared. Except for one person, the jester, the guy in the colorful hat with bells. The jester was the fool, but he was actually the most powerful person in the room. Why? Because nobody took him seriously. Since he was seen as a joke, he was the only one allowed to tell the king the truth. He could tell the king he was being greedy or making a mistake, and he'd do it through a joke or a funny story. The king would laugh, but the message would get through. This is called the jester's privilege. It's the power to be honest because you aren't trying to protect a serious reputation. The serious advisors were slaves to their own pride. They couldn't be honest because they had too much to lose. But the fool, he was already at the bottom. He had nothing to lose, and that's what made him free. If you're willing to let people laugh at you, they can't control you. Think about the number 0 for a second. It looks like nothing, right? But in math, 0 is where everything begins. It's a blank slate. If you're already at level 10 in your own head, meaning you think you're already an expert, you have nowhere left to go. You're stuck. But if you can get yourself back to level 0, you have infinite potential. The wise person tries to stay at 0 as much as possible. They try to look at the world with beginner's eyes. Think about a scientist. A serious scientist might see a weird result in an experiment and ignore it because that's impossible. But a foolish scientist, someone who is okay with being wrong, will look at the weird result and say, huh, that's funny. I wonder why that happened. But that's how breakthroughs happen. It's about being okay with the unknown. In the cards, the fool is often showing walking off a cliff. To most people, that looks like a mistake, but the message is that when you stop caring about what's normal or safe, you find a new way to move forward. Part 4, Why you should try this. So, how does this apply to your life right now? Look at how we act today. We are all performing on Instagram, on LinkedIn, even with our friends, but we're all trying to look like the emperor, successful, smart, and in control. We're all wearing these invisible clothes of perfection, and we're all secretly terrified that someone is going to notice we're actually just human and messy. Using the strategy of the fool means you stop playing that game. It's like a superpower. When you stop trying to prove how smart you are, you suddenly have so much more energy. Have you ever been in a situation where someone used a word you didn't know and you just nodded along because you didn't want to look stupid? The fool, the strategy is just to stop and say, actually, I don't know what that word means. Can you explain it? In that moment, you might actually feel stupid for like 5 seconds, but now you actually know the word. The person who nodded along is still in the dark. By being willing to look like a fool, you actually became the smarter person. You tested the ground while everyone else was just pretending to fly. In conclusion, you should dare to be the fool. We're also scared of being the joke. We're also scared of not having the answer, but the people who actually change the world, the artists, the inventors, the true thinkers, they always have a little bit of Jester in them. They are always willing to ask the dumb questions and do things that might fail. They use humor to break through the stiff, boring way everyone else thinks. So you shouldn't be afraid to look a bit dumb. Don't be afraid to be the one who doesn't get it. The expert version of yourself you're trying to build, it's a cage. It keeps you safe, but it also keeps you from ever learning anything new. And in a world full of people trying to be the emperor, you should just be the fool. He's the only one who can walk through the doors that everyone is too important to knock on. But you should step off the cliff of your own ego. You'll find out that the fall isn't nearly as bad as you feared, and the view from the bottom is the only one that's actually real.